Nintendo has been hard at work trying to change the face of their company from Mario to lawsuits and legal notices, and at the rate they're going, it's gonna happen sooner rather than later. Almost all of the news that I've heard from Nintendo in really the past 2 years has solely been about them suing someone for literally any reason they can or really can't find. I'm sure Nintendo would sue a child for drawing a picture of Mario in art class because he didn't have the rights to it. So it's absolutely no surprise to anyone that Nintendo is back at it yet again with another company's head on the chopping block, and today's contestant is going to be the parent company of Palworld, Pocket Pair. And getting straight into it, I'm pretty sure you could already tell from the title, but recently Nintendo finally decided to pull the trigger and take legal action against Pocket Pair and Palworld. Now, if you were on the internet at all at the time that Palworld initially came out, or really have even seen a picture of Palworld, I'm sure this information won't really come as a surprise to you. The only part about this situation that's really a bit surprising is how long it's taken them to actually decide to take legal action. Because at this point, it's almost been a year since Palworld has come out. So to a lot of people, this kinda seems like it's a bit out of the blue and kinda random, but at the time that Palworld did come out, Nintendo and Pokemon did release a statement saying that they were looking into it, but after the initial burst of hype died down, a lot of people either forgot about this or maybe just thought that Nintendo would end up doing the right thing for once and maybe not try to sue them. But it looks like instead, this entire time, they were really probably just trying to get their hands on as much information as possible so they can make the strongest case against them. And I know after what I just said, a lot of people might be thinking, how is it doing the right thing to not sue a company that you can really argue blatantly copied you in a lot of ways? And the reason behind that is not only competition, but it's also clearly what a lot of people wanted. When Palworld came out, it almost immediately became one of the top 3 most played games on Steam, and I think in just 6 days, they sold over 8 million copies. But like I said before, I'm also not gonna act like a lot of the things in the game, mainly characters, aren't almost a blatant copy of Pokemon, because they are. Even when the game came out, most people were calling it Pokemon with guns. And the reason that I'm bringing all of this up isn't just to glaze the game, but instead, with that information, the reason that most people would think they're getting sued for would most likely be for some sort of copyright infringement based on the fact that, like I said, a lot of their characters share a ton of resemblance, but surprisingly, that's not even what they're getting sued for. It looks like they're being sued for what really seems like a gameplay patent infringement. And before we try to get too deep into the actual contents of the lawsuit, Pocket Pair has come out with a response, and it'll probably make a bit more sense if we take a look at that first. Pocket Pair has responded to the lawsuit filed against it by Nintendo and the Pokemon Company. The studio that developed Palworld, the game at the heart of the suit, issued a statement early this morning saying it doesn't know what patents it violated. Quote, "At this moment, we are unaware of the specific patents we are accused of infringing upon, and we have not been notified of such details," the statement read. According to Nintendo's press release, the reason for the lawsuit has to do with Pocket Pair allegedly infringing on multiple as yet undisclosed patents. The details of the lawsuit have not yet been made public, so we do not yet know which patents, and according to Pocket Pair's statement, it doesn't know either. The news broke last night that Nintendo and TPC were suing the makers of Palworld, an open-world survival crafting game that features a collection of companion monsters players can catch and battle. Since its release in January, the game became an instant hit, racking up over 10 million copies sold and breaking the Steam concurrent player records within the first few weeks. Almost immediately, people noticed striking similarities between Palworld's pals and Pokemon, from their looks down to their extraordinarily similar character models. Now, the reason I wanted to read that first is because it really explains what I meant by it doesn't look like they're being sued for something like character copyright. Because when someone says patent infringement, it usually means something like patented technology, source code, or even gameplay mechanics. And if that is the case, unless they genuinely stole their source code somehow, I think it would have probably been a better idea to just try to sue them based on copyright, because really the only gameplay mechanics that Palworld really stole is the fact that you can run around and capture capture different creatures with PAL spheres that are basically Pokeballs. But other than that, and obviously how the PALs look super similar to a lot of Pokemons, that's really where most of their similarities end. If you're also someone who's played the game for really 10 or more hours, you'd also start to notice that Palworld's gameplay loop and mechanics are really more similar to the other game that a lot of people were comparing it to, Ark Survival Evolved. Because like I keep saying, even though Palworld does share a lot of similarities with Pokemon with the PALs and how you catch them, literally everything else is different. How you actually go about progressing through the game is much more like Ark. It's really more of an open world survival base building game. And just to play the devil's advocate for a bit, let's just say that Palworld did straight up copy Pokemon, like the gameplay and everything. I'd still be inclined to defend them, and the craziest thing is, most of Pokemon's fans would also defend Palworld. And when I say straight up copied, I also mean like to an extent. I do believe that, you know, if a company came around and just straight up ripped them off one for one, literally just everything copied but with slightly different names, sure, go ahead and sue them, smite them down, do everything you need to, because that's just blatantly copying them and profiting off of someone else's product. But like I was saying, even copying them to an extent, I still think that they should be 100% in the right, and really one of the main reasons for that is just straight up competition. And at the time that Palworld came out, it looks like competition is exactly what Pokemon needed. And I'm not gonna try to sit here and act like I'm some sort of Pokemon demon or I'm in the Pokemon community or anything like that, because I'm not. But what I do know is around the time that Palworld came out, a lot of Pokemon fans just seemed generally dissatisfied with the state that Pokemon was in. A lot of them were saying things like every Pokemon that comes out is either worse than the previous game or just isn't innovating or changing really anything at all, so they're basically just playing the same game every year. And this really loops back into what I was saying about the competition, because the only reason that something like that would ever happen is if a company doesn't have any other competition that really forces them to make their games better. And it's not even like Pokemon is the only or really even the best example of this. Look at games like Call of Duty and 2K, for example. It's the exact same thing that's happening with those games. But another major problem that I have with this, if not the biggest one, is if they are suing them because of a gameplay patent infringement, this is basically them trying to monopolize an entire style or genre of game. And I'm sure that I don't really need to tell you everything wrong with that. This would be like, for example, Call of Duty trying to put a patent on a team-based first-person shooter game. That'd mean that any other game that, of course, is team-based and you use guns to fight an enemy team wouldn't really be able to exist. Or a different example could be something like Forza trying to put a patent on open-world racing/racing games in general. And not only is obviously everything ever wrong with that, they also weren't even the first company to do the monster capturing type game. So it's really that much crazier to me how hard they're trying to push this idea that they're like the founders of this product and no one else can use it. But it looks like for right now, all we could really do is wait to see what happens next, and really just wait to see exactly what they're being sued for, because that'll really be the deciding factor of if this lawsuit will actually be successful for Nintendo or not. And speaking of being successful for Nintendo, I'm not really too sure what a success for them would entail right now, but if it were to end up in a situation where Palworld has to either shut down or really even significantly change, I really don't think that would be in the best interest for Nintendo. Because like I said earlier, even a lot of Pokemon fans were not only defending Palworld, but playing it and having a ton of fun on it because they wanted something different and new, and clearly Nintendo wasn't providing that for them. So if they were to actually take Palworld completely down or force it to change to the point where it's not even really the same game anymore, I'm just about 100% sure that they would start seeing significant backlash, and not just the type of backlash where you have a few people complaining on Twitter, but a significant sales drop, because not only are you proving yourself as the big bully on the block that shuts down any competition to your game that really shares any resemblance whatsoever, you're also trying to set the precedent that you can just monopolize an entire style of gameplay, even if if that comes at the detriment of players, the most important part of a game. Because it's not like it was just Pokemon fans playing Palworld either. It was also people that either just like survival games and they wanted to give Palworld a try, or it was people that didn't really care too much about Pokemon itself, but they liked the gameplay style, or the other option being they wanted to play something like Pokemon, but just straight up couldn't because they don't own the system to play it on, nor do they want to spend $350+ just to do it. So hopefully, for the best interest of literally everyone involved, Palworld doesn't get smited down here. But with that said, that's pretty much where this situation wraps up, and if you made it this far in the video, you probably liked something, so you may as well drop a like and maybe even subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, so every sub counts. But I'm not gonna hold y'all for too long, so I'll catch you guys in the next one.